Think Cleopatra was just a pretty face who charmed her way through history? Think again. Behind the beauty was a brilliant, bold, and ruthless queen who changed the course of Egypt and Rome forever. The Cleopatra you know from movies is a myth. She was far more than a seductress. The real woman was a complex leader who navigated a treacherous political landscape with her intellect. She commanded armies, negotiated treaties, and spoke to her people in their own language, something her predecessors hadn't done for centuries. Today we're peeling back the layers of myth to reveal the real Cleopatra, her ancestry, her intellect, and her dramatic end. Sometimes the truth is far more compelling than the fiction. Let's get started. One of the biggest misconceptions about Cleopatra, it's that she was Egyptian by blood. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, wasn't actually ethnically Egyptian at all. Her family, the Ptolemies, were Greek, descendants of Alexander the Great's general, Ptolemy. They came to Egypt after Alexander's conquest, bringing their own customs and language. The Ptolemies established a new ruling class, separate from the native Egyptians, and maintained their Greek identity for generations. For nearly 3 centuries, this Greek Macedonian dynasty ruled Egypt from the vibrant city of Alexandria, speaking Greek and living by Greek traditions, while the majority of Egyptians continued their own ancient ways. Cleopatra was born in Alexandria, making her Greek by blood, but Egyptian by birth and politics. She grew up surrounded by both Greek and Egyptian influences. What set her apart from her ancestors? She was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language and truly embrace local customs, bridging the gap between ruler and people. She presented herself as the living embodiment of the goddess Isis, forging a spiritual connection with her subjects that no previous Ptolemy had attempted. Her dual identity, Greek heritage, Egyptian heart, became her greatest political asset, allowing her to unite 2 worlds. Even her coins projected her as a powerful Hellenistic monarch, not just a local queen, reinforcing her authority across cultures. Cleopatra's reign was a masterclass in blending cultures for political power, skillfully navigating both Greek and Egyptian traditions. She married her brothers, as was Ptolemaic tradition, to keep the bloodline pure and power consolidated, following the customs of her Greek ancestors. But unlike her predecessors, she truly became Egypt's pharaoh, not just its foreign ruler, earning the loyalty of her people. She was Greek by blood, but Egyptian by choice. That choice changed everything, making her one of history's most fascinating and complex rulers. Cleopatra's greatest weapon wasn't her looks, it was her mind. Roman propaganda painted her as a temptress, but ancient sources like Plutarch describe her as exceptionally intelligent. She reportedly spoke at least 9 languages, rarely needing an interpreter. This gave her a huge diplomatic advantage. She could charm, persuade, and negotiate directly. Raised in Alexandria, the intellectual capital of the world, she studied mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, and medicine. She even wrote scholarly works, though none survive. Her knowledge of economics helped stabilize Egypt's faltering economy through smart reforms. Plutarch notes her charisma came from her wit and presence, not just her appearance. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony. They were captivated by her intellect and strategic mind. She was their equal, able to debate, strategize, and challenge them. Cleopatra was a polymath, a strategist, and a ruler whose intellect shaped history. Forget the seductress myth, she was a genius. That's what made her truly dangerous. Cleopatra's legendary beauty? Mostly a myth. Ancient sources, including Plutarch, say her looks weren't extraordinary. Her real power was charisma, her presence, intelligence, and especially her voice. She could command, soothe, and persuade with her words. Coins from her reign show a strong, determined ruler, not a Hollywood starlet. Caesar and Antony weren't swayed by beauty alone. They were drawn to her confidence, wit, and political savvy. Her dramatic entrance to Caesar, smuggled in a carpet, was a bold move that signaled her audacity and intelligence. Cleopatra was a partner, not a prize. She offered strategic insight and ruled a kingdom vital to Rome. Focusing on her beauty diminishes her true legacy. She was compelling because she was brilliant, not just beautiful. Her allure was the allure of power and intellect. The real Cleopatra was a force of personality, not just a face. That's what made her unforgettable. Cleopatra's relationships with Caesar and Antony? Far from simple love stories. These were strategic alliances forged for Egypt's survival. Exiled by her brother's advisors, Cleopatra engineered a meeting with Caesar, famously smuggled in a rug to reclaim her throne. She appealed to Caesar's interests, Egypt's stability and wealth. Their partnership secured her rule and produced a son, Caesarion. After Caesar's death, she dazzled Antony with a display of power and wealth, arriving as a living goddess. Their alliance was mutually beneficial. Antony got resources, Cleopatra got protection and influence. She wasn't a passive partner, she financed armies, shaped strategy, and pushed Antony's ambitions. The donations of Alexandria, where they declared their children rulers, was a bold political move that provoked Rome. Cleopatra was a wartime leader, not just a figurehead. She risked everything to defend her kingdom. Her goal: preserve Egypt's independence in a world dominated by Rome. She played the game on her own terms. Cleopatra was a master strategist, not a pawn. Cleopatra's death by snakebite? It's probably a myth. For centuries, the image of Egypt's last queen meeting her end with a venomous serpent has captured imaginations. But the truth is far more complex and intriguing. The story of the asp in a basket of figs is dramatic, but unlikely. Egyptian cobras are large and hard to hide. Smuggling such a dangerous animal into Cleopatra's private chambers without anyone noticing would have been nearly impossible. Death by snakebite is slow and messy, not the peaceful end described. Victims often suffer convulsions, paralysis, and hours of agony, hardly the dignified exit Cleopatra would have chosen for herself. Many historians believe she used poison instead. Cleopatra was an expert in toxicology and pharmacology. She had access to a vast array of substances and was known for her scientific curiosity. She likely prepared a fast-acting, painless poison, possibly a mix of hemlock, wolfsbane, and opium. Such a concoction would have ensured a swift, controlled, and relatively painless death. Poison could be easily concealed and controlled, fitting her meticulous nature. It allowed her to orchestrate her final moments with precision, away from prying eyes. The snake story served Octavian's propaganda, painting her death as exotic and absolving him of blame. It turned Cleopatra into a legend while distracting from the political realities of her defeat. The cobra was also a symbol of pharaonic power, a fitting legend for her final act. Linking her death to the sacred serpent reinforced her royal image, even in defeat. Ancient sources admit the truth was uncertain. Some mention a poisoned hairpin, others suggest a secret ointment or hidden vial, adding to the mystery. The only marks found were 2 pricks on her arm. Needle or snake, we'll never know. The ambiguity has fueled debate for generations, but the evidence points to a carefully planned, dignified end. Cleopatra's final act was as deliberate and strategic as her reign. Cleopatra's death, like her life, was a calculated act of political theater. She controlled her narrative to the very end, ensuring her legacy would endure. The real story is even more fascinating than the myth, layered with intrigue, science, and the enduring power of legend. Cleopatra wasn't just a palace queen, she was a military leader with her own navy. She understood that power on the water was just as important as power on land, and she made sure Egypt's fleet was a force to be reckoned with. Egypt's naval tradition was strong, and under Cleopatra, the fleet was modernized and expanded. She invested in new ship designs, recruited skilled sailors, and ensured her navy was equipped with the latest technology of the ancient world. She commanded hundreds of warships, including powerful quinqueremes, massive vessels with 5 rows of oarsmen designed for both speed and strength in battle. Her navy was a key asset in her alliance with Antony, providing ships, money, and strategic planning. Together they formed one of the most formidable military partnerships of the ancient world. Cleopatra was present with her fleet during the lead-up to the Battle of Actium, establishing military headquarters and making strategic decisions. She wasn't just a figurehead, she was actively involved in every aspect of the campaign. At Actium, she commanded her own squadron from her flagship, the Antonia, leading her ships into the heart of the conflict and inspiring her sailors by her presence. The traditional story says she fled the battle, but modern historians suggest it may have been a planned breakout, a calculated move to save her fleet and regroup for another fight. Regardless, Cleopatra was in the thick of the action, leading her forces and making split-second decisions as the battle raged around her. Actium was a catastrophic defeat, but she was a commander to the end, refusing to abandon her people or her cause even in the face of overwhelming odds. Her role as a warrior queen was real. She took risks, fought for her kingdom, and inspired loyalty among her followers. Cleopatra was more than a political figure. She was a leader on land and sea, commanding respect from soldiers and sailors alike. Her military command set her apart from other rulers of her time, making her a legend not just in Egypt, but throughout the ancient world. She was a true warrior queen, bold, brilliant, and unafraid to lead from the front. Cleopatra's death marked the end of an era. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt. Her passing ended a line of rulers stretching back nearly 3,000 years. Though Greek by blood, she fully embraced the role of pharaoh, learning the language and presenting herself as the goddess Isis. Her son, Caesarion, was meant to continue the dynasty, but after her defeat, he was killed by Octavian. With their deaths, the Ptolemaic line, and all pharaonic rule, ended. Egypt became Octavian's personal possession, its wealth feeding the Roman Empire. The political and spiritual heart of Egypt was gone, the temples remained, but the pharaoh was no more. Cleopatra's struggle was a last stand for Egyptian independence. Her death was a political act, denying Octavian his triumph. The story of ancient Egypt as an independent power ends with her. She was the final guardian of a legacy thousands of years old. Cleopatra's life was a brilliant, desperate fight against Rome's rise. Her death was the full stop at the end of Egypt's ancient story. Next time someone calls Cleopatra just a pretty face, tell them the real story. She was a polyglot genius, a scholar, a shrewd economist, and a military commander. She wasn't a passive character, she was the author of her own story, fighting for her people and throne. The myths about her were crafted by enemies threatened by her power. Cleopatra was the last in a 3,000-year line of pharaohs, a brilliant flame before Egypt's independence was extinguished. She was a complex, formidable ruler who left an indelible mark on history. Cleopatra wasn't just beautiful, and she wasn't just a queen, she was legendary.